All right, Steeler fans, it is time for the Monday morning conversation. And if you paid attention last week, we had John Suchan, who covers the Cleveland Browns for Fans First Sports Network. This week, we are going around the division again. We're in Cincinnati, staying in Ohio. We got Brandon Herriott, or B-Dirt from the homies, as you know him, who running through the jungle. What's up, B-Dirt?
Not much. How you doing, Jeff?
I'm doing fine, man. It's hard to believe we're just got a couple days almost now until people get back to training camp. We're talking about real football. That's an exciting thing for sure.
Yeah, at least most of our team will be at training camp.
You want to start there?
That's where everybody does.
We started with Shamar Stewart. What is going on? Like, I was going to talk about the draft class first and foremost, but I mean, that is such a strange situation. And I've been trying to ask people, maybe you're the person to ask, were there red flags about this guy coming into the draft? About like that this was even a possibility that he's going to have these issues with some verbiage in the contract and sit out all of minicamp, all of OTAs, all of that stuff? Like, were there red flags?
I didn't see any character red flags. My red flags were more about production.
Or lack thereof.
Yeah. Listen, Test's great, right? Superb athlete. We're not real sure how great of a football player he is. Yet to be determined. High upside. It's a high risk, high reward pick. It's very interesting. I had a little bit of a meltdown the night of the draft about the pick because I feel like where the Bengals are and building their team and building their roster, paying Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, maybe Trey. When you're paying a significant amount of your salary to 3 or 4 guys, you can't get draft picks wrong like that in the first round. They have to be productive members of your team. So to take a high risk, high reward at 17, I would have rather just had a plug and play player.
Yeah, it makes sense.
I'd rather had an average player at 17 than try to really hit a home run, swing for the fences.
That makes sense. And yes, like you said, Shamar Stewart is swinging for the fences. Everyone knows if you're a baseball fan, that can lead to a home run or it could lead to a swing and miss. And a lot of people would say, well, that's the draft in a nutshell, and I get it. But let's leave Shamar Stewart out of the equation because that's been well documented. And he, as of this being recorded, has not signed his contract yet. And so he remains an unsigned commodity for the Cincinnati Bengals. But I guess before we abandon that completely, do you see him signing it before training camp, or do you think this is going to linger?
I don't think it's going to linger long. I think both sides realize as a rookie it's very important to get him in the training camp and get him reps. My gut is that we'll see the Bengals just cave on this, and it's just the terminology in the contract that can actually null and void not just this year if he gets suspended or something, but that year, following years. And it's out there. It's in other contracts. It's in, top 5 contracts. It's the pick in front of Shamar Stewart. It's in his contract. So it's out there. The Bengals just haven't done it before. They tried to start using it. He caught it. Good for him. Good for his agent. Good for his dad. And they're taking a stance on it. It is what it is. Listen, don't get suspended. Don't assault people. Don't do drugs. Don't speed. Don't whatever. But I get the man's trying to protect his money
for sure. Now let's go through the rest of the draft. They had no 7th round draft picks, but a full allotment otherwise. You said you had a meltdown after the 1st round pick. What was your takeaway from the other selections? Were you happy with the Browns draft, or did you not? Were you still?
Draft.
The Bengals.
I was ecstatic about the Browns draft, Jeff.
Of course, we all were.
Yeah, it was great.
But for the Bengals, my apologies. For the Bengals, what was your takeaway on the rest of the draft?
I liked some of the players. Running back in the 6th round, Taj Brooks, I think, was a very good fit. Dylan Fairchild, I was very high on. So I was happy we got him. Fairchild at guard. The linebacker was a need. I know a lot of people say that draft pick was kind of out of place as far as where he was slotted at. That's Knight Jr., Demetrius Knight Jr., out of South Carolina. But again, the guy's a little bit older. He's a plug-and-play player in my mind. I think he's going to be an emotional leader for that defense. And I hearken back to the Lions draft of a couple years ago where they took Sam Laporta out of place. They took their running back.
Jameer Gibbs.
12th, what's that?
Jameer Gibbs?
Jameer Gibbs, yeah.
Yeah.
They took him, 12th overall or something like that, and people went in an upward. They filled needs. They took Jack Campbell ahead of where they thought he was going to go, which I know actually upset some Steelers fans.
Right.
But those players worked for them, and I feel like that kind of later in the draft we did that same thing.
Okay. So you're pretty happy overall with the Bengals draft class, and so now let's talk about free agency because you mentioned it already. I did not expect, I'm going to be very honest, as a Steelers fan watching from afar, Joe Burrow, in my opinion, all the other things that he said about we're going to make sure T stays. I'm looking at this from afar saying you can say all the right things, but when it comes down to money, how are you going to tie up that much money into 3 players? You know that Jamar Chase was going to be the priority over T. Higgins, and they do sign both of them. But, man, how are they going to manage everything else? And we're not even talking about Trey Hendrickson yet and what they might do with him. Is there a cause for concern amongst Bengals fans that they have all that money invested into those 3 individuals?
I don't think so. I just think twofold here. One is if you have those 3 individuals on offense, you always have a shot.
True.
And there's been a blueprint out there with other teams spending large amounts of money on 3 or 4 players, Eagles being one, that does work. You do have to get those draft picks right, number one. And number 2, what I really like about the Bengals is when you look at the salary cap and where the big money starts hitting their caps, none of it's in the same year. So first you had Joe's money hit, then you have T's money hit. Jamar Chase's $40 million doesn't hit for two more seasons, because they have the 5th-year option, and then
right.
So what gave him his 40 average was his signing bonus to get that 5th-year option up there. So that we're okay right now with him. You know, he's 21, I think, or something like that on the cap, or 22. It's not a bad situation with how that hits the cap and the projection of the cap going up.
Exactly. No, that's smart. And then the Bengals are not idiots. They knew what they were doing. My question for you about the offense, though, is twofold. How's the offensive line look? Because I just saw some stats the other day about how Joe Burrow has been beaten to a pulp since he came into the league. And 2, their running game. Last year they were highly competitive, but I just felt like they really missed that Joe Mixon type player. Not necessarily Joe Mixon, but they just couldn't run the ball and they couldn't establish the run. There was no consistency there. So in your opinion, let's start with the offensive line, because by proxy, that's going to equate to the running game. What have they done to help bolster that group that's going to help keep Joe Burrow upright?
Well, I think most of what you're looking at here is a big roll of the dice with Dylan Fairchild.
Yeah.
They're really banking on a rookie to come out of Georgia and start day one and play average or above average. He is replacing the worst pass blocking guard in football last year in Alex Kappa. So I don't think it's out of question for him to step in there and do better. Doesn't have a far to go.
It's a pretty low bar.
Yeah, pretty low bar, they say. But Chase Brown averaged 4.3 yards a carry. If that can come up, 10% at 4.7, you're talking about, rare air. That's in that top 12 area. I think there's an opportunity for him to do that. There is, a lot of what he does is a stretch running and whatnot. And he does run in between the tackles a little bit. But we kind of got that stigma of not being able to get that tough yard or not getting the between the tackles yardage. And I think it's just as much to do with the guards as it is the running back. That said, I like Taj Brooks. I think, At 5'9", 220, he's a little more stout. He runs between the tackles a little bit better than Chase Brown. So I like the 1-2 punch there. And I think he'll be our number 2 back halfway through the year.
Wow, okay. So this high-powered Bengals offense, what, if anything, can slow them down, in your opinion?
Injury, obviously, it's the NFL. That can always happen. Outside of that, play calling, we get a little too pass-happy with play calling. And if we've got it wrong at guard. So pressure up the middle can thwart any offense. You look at the Texans' woes last year. They had injuries at wide receiver, and they had pressure directly up the middle, and C.J. Stroud had someone in his face constantly. Yeah. And you saw what that looked like, and they had to retool because of it.
Well, last year, I'm looking this up now, the Bengals averaged offensively 27.8 points per game. That's accurate, yes?
Yeah, about 28 points.
And that was with the offensive line that you're mentioning that needs to improve. Are we talking 30 points per game if they can get some better guard play?
Well, how about this? I would like to say no. I'd like to stay around that 28 because I'd like to play more of these games from ahead and maybe use more 4-minute offense and less 2-minute offense. That would be great.
And I know you're going to say that the best thing would be to have a defense that doesn't require that many points to be scored. And let's talk about the defensive side of the ball. The Bengals last year, and everyone's saying it already this year, you might disagree, they're going to have to outscore people to win games. What do you say to that?
There was several injuries. There was lack of player development. There has been for several years now. We just didn't play our rookies. I think it's why Lou Anarumo was let go. He just didn't develop the younger players enough, and it became a huge problem. I expect them to be better this year. I expect them to be better coached, better prepared. I like some of the things we've done as far as shoring up the defensive line. There's not a ton of depth though, and safety room is going to be interesting. Does Geno Stone bounce back and play more like he did when he was with the Ravens, or does he play like he did the first half of last year? He was terrible. Yeah. I think he would tell you that. So that needs to improve. Corners we had several injuries last year, so there is some. They need to prove it. I think until they prove it, you have to expect you're going to have to score. I think that's the way the Bengals are looking at it going into the season.
As a fan, are you sitting here right now as kind of having the assumption, kind of like Steeler fans with TJ Watt, that Trey Hendrickson's going to be there? Or are you thinking, I don't know, this thing could go south in a hurry? What's your takeaway on the Hendrickson situation?
I think Trey will be there by, week 6.
You're talking regular season? He's going to miss games?
If you're asking me when I guarantee he'll be there, that's what I would say.
Oh, my thought is, do you think he's going to show up to camp if he doesn't have a contract? Do you think he's like, I'm not showing up for anything?
I know he's working out with some of the guys again. We'll see. The players are bonded on that team. Sometimes it's against management, which is not a situation you want. Right. It seems to have worked out for them for the most part so far. Going into the offseason, I said if you sign 2 of these 3 guys and get an asset for the other one, I'm happy. It looks like they're not going to get an asset for the other one, so you need to sign him. I mean, but they're just arguing over the years and the money don't align with where each other see. What I'm hearing is that Trey's camp looking for mid-30s range. So let's just call it 35. And the Bengals are willing to give that for a 1-year extension, not a 3-year extension. And He wants a 3-year extension, which puts him at playing into his 35, 36 years old.
I was just going to ask, how old is he now?
30. I think he's turning 32.
Oh, so he's only like a year older than TJ Watt.
Correct. Yeah, year and a half older than TJ.
I'm surprised that the Bengals wouldn't give him the 3 years, but have it built and structured in a way that they could then get out of maybe that 3rd year if necessary with minimal damage. And I think that's where the Steelers and TJ Watt are hung up. I think they have the numbers TJ wants like 40 a year, and they're saying we'll give you 40 a year,
but
are you willing to
guaranteed? Yeah.
Are you willing to give us something like the years left in the contract so that we can maneuver this money accordingly, so we can get you a signing bonus that'll drop your cap from close to 30 million this year down to like 3? Like, there's going to be some give and take, and that's where I think there's a little bit of a hang up. So it's interesting, though, that Trey Hendrickson and the Bengals are going to. So you think, though, he'll be there week 6?
Oh, I said if you drop dead, he'll be there at week 6 is my drop dead date. I think he'll get signed. I don't know which way they're trying to get this done, if they're doing Trey first and then Shamar, or one or the other, but my gut is you'll see one of them drop by, end of week training camp, week 1, and I think the other one gets done the following week, or maybe in the third week.
All right, so I want to ask you now, you talk about all the acquisitions and the departures in free agency, and you talk about the schedule and everything. What's your expectations for the Bengals in 2025?
I think they'll compete for the division. It's going to be a tough division. It always is.
It always is.
There's a reason why no one's won the AFC North 3 years in a row.
Yep.
3 years ago we were going for that and got knocked off by the Ravens. Now the Ravens are going for it, so everybody's going to be gunning. My gut is probably 11-6, maybe 10-7, maybe 12-5. Depends on the defense.
So that's your hesitation. It's not so much like, wow, going up against NFC North, which the AFC North is paired with this year. It's more so you're just not sure about the defense being able to hold up.
Yep. And they played better in the second half of the season. They were in the middle of the pack of the second half of the season. And it's not like, Jeff, the Bengals and the Steelers could not be more polar opposite as a franchise in history. Just the history of the Steelers, the way the Bengals now play the game versus the Steelers play the game. When I say the Bengals having a good defense, I don't mean top 5. You know what I mean? When you say Steelers having a good defense, it's like, were you top 3 in the league?
Yeah.
I'm talking about, can we get to the middle of the pack? If you give Joe Burrow the 15th ranked defense in the league, I think he wins you 12 games.
Probably. Because in today's NFL, you don't need a dominant defense anymore. It's great if you have it.
It is.
It's great if you have a defense. You're like, look, get us to 20. If you put 20 on the board, there's no shot in hell we're losing this game. That's phenomenal, but that's also rare in today's National Football League.
It's like a big security blanket. That's what it is.
For sure. All right, so something I've also been doing with these guests that come on from around the AFC North is I'm asking them what their thoughts and the fan base, because you all have a much you have your fingers on the pulse of the Bengals fan base. I do not, obviously. What's been your takeaway on the Steelers offseason? Because it's been different, man. It has been different in a lot of ways. Trading, whether it's acquiring DK Metcalf, whether it's trading away George Pickens, now trading away Minkah Fitzpatrick, acquiring Aaron Rodgers. What are the Bengals fans saying? I'm curious.
Yeah, so I'll start with this. I do get a lot of riff from. I live in Pittsburgh.
Yes.
I get a lot of riff from my friends. When are you going to sign Trey? I'm like, hey, when are you going to sign TJ? Like, why? Stop that. But Aaron Rodgers is a weird dude. But he did have some flashes last year, threw some good passes. He is a upgrade from what you have.
I agree.
Okay. I also think he's cerebral and can manage the game. If he buys in to Tomlin managing the game and playing defense first, and TJ's there and everything's firing on all cylinders, I mean, could be a good fit for you. Yeah. I don't think he's going to be one of those guys that's going to win you the game, but he's going to lose you less games than anybody else that you've had in that spot over the past, since Big Ben left.
Right. Yeah.
As far as like the defense and Minkah Fitzpatrick leaving and Ramsey coming in, that was all mind blowing to me. And I don't know. At the end of the day, I hear maybe that was some locker room issues, and maybe that was some this, that. I think that's kind of a wash. I think Jonnu was the one that was. I think that's a good pickup for you guys because you didn't have a really like a number 2 in Stone at wide receiver. So now I think this gets you into multiple tight end sets and creates matchup weaknesses against other defenses. So I think you that trade helped solve a little bit of that problem of not having that. Now you can wait and see if one of these young guys become that solid number 2.
I mean, this is an Arthur Smith offense that is like a wet dream for him. I mean, he loves tight ends. He's going to run 13 personnel until someone tells him he's not allowed to do it anymore. Let's get Pat Freiermuth, let's get Jonnu Smith, and let's get Darnell Washington out there, and let's see what we can do. It's going to be interesting. Like you said, the buy-in from Aaron Rodgers. Fans have always hated how they feel like Mike Tomlin has put the handcuffs on quarterbacks and said, just don't mess it up. If there's a quarterback out there, especially in his last year of playing, that's going to say, you know what? I'm not going down like that. It's probably Aaron Rodgers, right? And so I think that, but Aaron Rodgers typically does not like to run heavy tight end personnel. He's an 11 personnel guy. Give me all the receivers out there. That's what he wants. I'm with you though. The Jonnu Smith, that acquisition is not being talked about enough. I think he's
route runner too.
Very versatile. He can line up in the slot. You could put him out wide if you wanted. But what was your takeaway of DK Metcalf coming to the Steelers?
Pickens out, DK in.
And one's less of a head case.
Slightly, ever so slightly.
Well,
I will say this though: there's some fireworks in the Bengals' history with DK. Just so you know.
Is there?
Oh, there is. You go on YouTube and look it up. Him and Cam Taylor-Britt have gotten into it a little bit. It's been fun.
Yeah. See, DK's all on the field though. Once he's not that guy that's going to just evade reporters and do all the stupid stuff that Pickens did, and he's going to try his hardest. And he's going to play to the whistle. And I don't think there's ever going to be a situation where he's not going to block for anyone. I mean, so
no,
that's interesting.
He likes being the antagonist.
Oh yeah,
which I kind of grin at. It's kind of fun.
He's a freaking monster. He's like a freak of nature out there. Yeah. Human beings that big should not be able to move like that at all. No. So, all right. So, I
watch the Buda Baker rundown. That's just
thing. It's phenomenal.
When Buda Baker had the interception, he ran him down like an adult running with a child. It's wild.
I want to ask you another question about your take on the Steelers and also your fans. What's your all's take on Mike Tomlin? Because talk about a polarizing character among Steelers fans. I mean, there's the people that love Mike Tomlin. He's people want to play for him. You cannot deny that. But the success hasn't been there when it matters most since 2016. What do Bengals fans, and you all have your own issues with your head coach, I understand that. Most teams do. What's your takeaway of Tomlin?
Listen, there's a lot of things Bengals fans say about Steelers and pick on with Steelers. I don't hear much about Tomlin. Okay. I think it's overall good vibes as far as Tomlin's a good coach. To me, I get he hasn't won big games recently in playoff games or whatever, but I also think the cupboard has been a little bare in aspects, especially you guys had a really good run of, with Big Ben and having that great quarterback. Since then, it's just been trying to find your footing. But the guy wins with Duck Hodges. You know what I mean?
Right.
As far as listen, I like it when I know. I'll turn on local Pittsburgh radio just to listen to it when I know that the Yinzers are going to call in and go off on Tomlin. I think it's hilarious. I think he's a great coach, man. Do sometimes change of scenery? Does sometimes that help both sides and kind of revitalize things? It does. Sometimes a voice gets muddied over time or loses its luster. Is that the situation? Maybe. I think this season will say a lot about that. But if you're looking at drafting your future quarterback next year, I think this is the make or break for Tomlin, right?
Yeah, you would think. You would think absolutely.
If he does well this season, I think he stays for at least the first couple years of the next quarterback. He probably gets an extension. Yeah.
Yeah. He can stay. I've always said he has the golden ticket. He can stay as long as he wants. They're not firing him. I mean, I don't know what the man would have to do to get fired, but he would have to do something pretty egregious.
He'd have a job before the ink dried.
Absolutely. No doubt about it. All right, I want to get you out with this final question. You mentioned it earlier, and I knew it, and most AFC North fans know it, that since 2002, when the AFC North was created, no team has won it 3 years in a row. The Ravens, obviously, as you stated, have won it the last 2 years. If you're a betting man, and I know you are at times, are you betting on the Ravens to break the streak and to make history, or are you betting on one of the other 3 teams to somehow find a way to claim victory in the North?
So I'm taking the Ravens versus the field?
That's right.
I'll take the field.
Okay, I agree with you 100%. Who are you taking, though? You taking the Bengals?
Well, you just told me I could take the field. If I had to take one of the teams, I would take the Ravens.
No. So,
the field,
so you're taking the field. So out of the field, who do you think would win it?
I'll take the Bengals.
Okay. I think the Steelers are going to be more competitive than people think.
I think the top 3 are going to be. I think we're going to have one of the situations where we have 3 above 500 teams again.
Yeah, I think Cleveland's going to suck. But other than that, I think it's going to be a very competitive division. So, all right, B-Dirt, I appreciate you joining the show. I want to give you an opportunity to plug your social media handles, YouTube channels, your podcast, all that stuff. Go ahead and do that now.
Yeah, we are Running Through the Jungle Network. You can find us on Twitter. You can find us on YouTube. You can find us anywhere you get a podcast. Whether it's Apple, Google, Spotify, all those things. We are ramping up. The month of August is the get back to work, as we call it. We actually took the 4th of July weekend off.
There you go.
But now we're back this week, and then we are ramping up with some new shows for you this year. So
good.
We got some cool stuff going on.
Yeah, so if you want to hear what's going on over there in Bengals territory, go check out Running Through the Jungle. They're a part of Fans First Sports Network. But I'm sure we will be in touch as the season progresses. B-Dirt, thanks for your time, man. I appreciate it. Take it easy.
Thanks, Jeff.